Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and welcome to November. If you look on this side, it is October. If you look on this other side, it is December. This guy is a little snowman that's out of silicone, and if you squeeze him, he poops orange. But I'm going to be like squishing this for a while under the table so that you guys don't get like distracted by the sound of this pooping. Okay. Even though he is very cute and he deserves a lot of more screen time. Okay. But I'm in my cozy November corner. I've started making another little granny square. I have this unfinished granny square and the original one that I have. So, let's see. I'm also reading a lot of books at the moment, but there are three nonfiction books. So I'm reading all these books at the same time, which is not recommended, but it is okay to do that with nonfiction books because you can just return to where you left off, and like it's not like you're forgetting the plot of the story. So I'm reading Le Deuxième Sexe by Simone de Beauvoir, which is a feminist book from 1949, it looks like. And then it was re-edited in 1976. According to here, it says it's from 1986, but it doesn't seem to be that way. I think it's just this edition that is 1986. Simone de Beauvoir was a French feminist, and she really like helped France like become a more feminist country, with like abortion and all that. Do not confuse Simone de Beauvoir with Simone Weil, who was also a feminist. But Simone Weil was not into writing books. She was more into like advocating for abortion rights and such. While Simone de Beauvoir was more of a philosopher, you could say. Of course, it's a little bit dated because she said that there were like her ideas on sex and gender are pretty, second wave feminism kind of, that there are only two sexes and that nothing in between. That's why it's called the second sex. Okay, but I do think that she was a pioneer for her time, and it's really interesting. She talks about how man and woman, like how the woman is just other, while the man is the default, which I think is pretty like progressive for a book that was written so long time ago. So I do recommend this book. There are 2 tomes, and I've only read like the introduction, and I'm in the middle of chapter 1. But it is looking good so far. I'm also reading The Body Keeps the Score, which I'm also only like 4 chapters in. It's about trauma. Bessel van der Kolk. This is like the book about trauma that people are reading at the moment. And I think that it's really good. Only thing is that he sometimes is kind of off the mark. Like he'll compare a Vietnam War veteran to and an abused child, and like these things are not the same. He talks about the Vietnam War veteran that goes in a rampage and like kills children and rapes a woman, and compares that to an abused child who really did not hurt anybody. So that's not to discount the PTSD that people who have been in the Vietnam War have faced, but there is a difference there in like who has more accountability and responsibility over that, or but this guy, I guess that's him on the cover. He talks. The thing is, this guy was like instrumental in like creating the diagnosis PTSD and writing about it in the DSM-3, which is the Bible for psychiatrists. So this guy is really, really knowledgeable, and he is a real Bessel van der Kolk. He himself witnessed a lot of people who had trauma in his family from the Netherlands and World War II and such. And he talks a lot about neurology, and it's a good book. And finally, my third book that I'm going through right now is called Sapiens, which I'm around halfway through. This is a very dense book. It's 416 pages, and I'm around 211 pages. Really interesting about how humans have evolved together, and it talks about like the start of writing and the start of religion, and like how Homo sapiens distinguished itself from other species of Homo. So really recommend this book. This is the one that I've gotten like furthest in, because I'm trying to read one book at a time. Not really going too well. I'm going to try to get into more nonfiction. Into more fiction. It's just that right now I have like these 3 nonfiction books that I want to get at least one of them finished before I go to the next one. Also, I have my tea here. So this is a Swedish tea that I actually haven't had since I was drinking this several years ago, when I was in medical school. Back when I lived in Stockholm and was living, like renting a room from a lady. And it was one of the few things that like was mine, was tea. So the smell of this is really evoking some, like, sometimes, I don't know if those times were good or bad, but and it tastes like it did before. So it's pretty nice. Okay, now that I've gotten all of these introductions done, let's get into a topic of the video. I mean, at this point, this is only a subtopic. But I wanted to talk about how people feel at ease around INFPs, and how we, just by the fact of our presence, make people feel their feelings and try to connect with that part of themselves, which they wouldn't do if they weren't in our presence. Okay, the subject of this video is pretty like self-aggrandizing, arrogant, or selfish, egotistical, whatever you want to call it. But I do think that we have a talent there, we have a skill there, and I think that it's something that is very particular to the INFP. I'm talking about my friends. Now this has happened 3 times. Maybe that's not enough to construct a pattern, but still. These are my FE friends, my friends that use FE. They are my INFJ friend, my ISFJ INFJ friend, my ENFJ friend. And now all three of them have chosen a film. Well, we were going to sit and watch a film. And so picked out the film. And then once they see the film, they realize, oh, that's why I picked that film. I had this trauma to talk about. I had this, I had all these feelings that were buried, I haven't processed. And then they start crying like inconsolable. And I told you guys about my ISFJ friend doing that a few weeks ago when we were watching The Sixth Sense, where the father, where the main character in the story kind of acts like a father figure to the little boy, and the little boy sees ghosts. And my friend had his father had died 10 years ago, and this was the most upset I've ever seen him be. Even when I met him like a year after the death, he wasn't crying as hard as he did now. So that was him picking that movie. Like he looked at the summary of the movie and he said, like, this seems like a good movie. My INFJ friend chose Lilo and Stitch. Got also very upset at the end of that movie. And really liked Lilo and Stitch, but then realized while he was watching it with me that it was related to his own story. And now, last weekend, I spent the weekend with my ENFJ friend, and she painted my nails, and she gave me this skull. And we had a pajama party, kind of Halloween-y night. And then we went in the town that she was at. We walked around and we saw all of the hipster places because she lives in a student town. So there were all of these hipster places, bohemian cafes. She was kind of we went to this place that is kind of gentrified suburb, and we saw all sorts of cool cafes and art studios and such. And so it was a great weekend. And we watched Dune, did not understand a thing. But she herself chose to watch Coco, because Coco, it's Dia de los Muertos, which, for those who don't know, is All Saints Day, basically, or Halloween, depending on what your former preference is, in Mexico. And she's from Venezuela, so her culture was reflected in that. And the family in that film reflected her family. And she was talking a lot about her grandmother, who resembles kind of the family members in that story. A pretty tough environment to live in and to grow up in. Family always goes first and in that culture. And she was kind of a rebel at a point in her life, where she wanted to sing. She wanted to become a singer, just like the person in the movie. And she had seen this movie before, okay? So she chose it, and she said, I remembered it was really good. I don't remember anything else. I was like, okay. And it was a great movie. But my friend was crying by the end of it. Okay, I need a fortifying tea for this. But she was crying by the end of it. And I was like, oh, are you okay? And she was like, yeah, it's fine. And then we were eating chips and popcorn and such. And then we started talking about our patients. we're always talking about our patients because we're doctors, and you can't talk about that kind of stuff to anybody else. And so I was telling her that, well, we have a common friend. Or I was talking to her about my ISFJ friend who's becoming a geriatrics doctor, and she was like, "Oh, that's so admirable, that he wants to do that." And then she said, "Look, by the way, casually, that her grandma." It was a whole story about her mom and her grandma, because she was talking about religion, and her grandma was very religious. And then she just said to me, "Oh, well, she died." I was like, "Wait, when did this story happen?" This story happened this week. This happened 5 days ago. Like, your grandmother died 5 days ago. And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Are you okay?" "Are you okay?" And I said, "I don't know what relation you had to your grandma, but like, you're, this is a pretty big thing that happened." And she was like, "You're right." And then I said, "Well, you were talking a lot about the grandma and the movie that we just watched. How did that make you feel?" And then she started crying again and getting really upset. And then I did not know really what to say, but she said that she's always going and going and going, like not thinking about her feelings. She just keeps going because there's so much traumatic that has happened in her life, and so many things with her family, and with having to deal with medical school in Venezuela, which was a thing, and then having to deal with, well, a relationship that wasn't super healthy, and all sorts of things. Basically, she's gone through a lot, and she said, "Oh, I always forget the negatives and just focus on the positives. But sometimes I need to go through my feelings." And I said, "Yeah." And we're both in therapy. I mean, I'm in therapy, and she is too. And she's going through these things. But the fact is that she really broke down from a film that she chose to watch, that was so close to her life, that she couldn't, there were all these things that she hadn't processed. And I said, "But it's okay to cry about your grandma." And I said to her, like, I said, every time I come here, we end up, you're always very happy and positive, but then you're repressing something extremely traumatic. Because there was another time where, like, her mom basically she had a panic attack, like the week before, and had to go to the hospital. And like, she was like, "Oh, everything's fine, and I'm like, "No." And like, then she like suddenly remembers that, "Oh no, things aren't fine." So I think that INFPs, we value honest feeling, processing through emotions. I think this is what we do all the time, and we overdo it, but some people never process things. They're always in the go, go, go and doing things for others and maintaining a happy face and such, that when they finally meet an INFP who's willing to sit and not judge them for feeling down, then it kind of gets all unleashed. I think that that's our like specific brand of insight that we can give. Usually when people think of insight, they think of like NIFE insight, like INFJs have a lot of insight. ENFJs too. I think that the thing with INFJs and ENFJs is that they'll have thought a lot about different things. And then when they say something, it's like succinctly they've come to the point of all of the different things that have been going on in their heads. And then it comes, like when it comes out, when they say it, it's like a big revelation, there's a thing. Well, I think ENFPs and INFPs, we kind of tend to waffle around like 100 different topics before there's like a little nugget of truth that you have to sift through there. And I think that we have our kind of wisdom, we have our kind of insight, and it's often overlooked, but it is something that needs to be there in the world. I think that this is what I can give to my friends, my family, that nobody else can do in the same way as I can. And we were talking also about empathy and such. And she was like, well, you can't put yourself into every person's shoes. You can't exactly know. She was talking about a gay person that she knew in her life, and she only figured out later that she couldn't understand why he hadn't opened up to her. And later on, she found out that his family was really homophobic, and so of course it was really brave of him to finally tell her. But I think that, like, as an INFP, I don't need that kind of experience to be able to put myself into somebody else's shoes. I think that because I can self-reference a lot, I can see how everybody's experience kind of relates to mine. It doesn't have to relate 100%. It doesn't even have to relate 50%. I can relate to like maybe just 10% of what they're saying, and I can couple it back to a certain experience that I have had and empathize with that person from that point. Sometimes it is really stretching it, and sometimes it's difficult for me to find some kind of commonality in that. So I might not always be as empathetic to everybody if I really can't see anything in common. But if I don't have to have gone through trauma and abuse or have a person in my life die to know how it would feel. I'm not always the best at like knowing how to comfort a person who is in that situation. But I do know how I would have felt in that kind of situation. And I don't need to go through mental gymnastics. Like, I can feel it. Okay. This video makes no sense. Anyway, I hope that you guys are having a nice autumn evening, or day or night or whatever. I'm going to finish drinking my tea, and I'm going to keep squishing this little squishy guy. And I'm on holiday this week, so that's why I'm having a good time. I've been finishing up this thing. I think that it's going to be a headband for my mom. I put this little thingy, and then you can like wrap it around your head. I can't do it with the earplugs on, but it's too short to actually be used as a scarf. But if you have this little clip thing, it can be like a little collar or something. So yeah, have a great day, everybody.